My name is Jamie Higginbotham, and we have got an action-packed episode for you today. I am joined with a Space Mike, a Ryan, a Dutta, and a Jared, and we're going to go straight into it because, man, there's been a lot of stuff happening in space. First up, earlier this morning, Crew 10 docked with the International Space Station. Space Mike, why don't you take it away from there?
That's right. We finally were able to get the Crew 10 launch. There was a couple of delays with things, but we were able to get a successful launch for that. It was supposed to originally have launched on Wednesday of this past week, but due to a hydraulic issue with the strong back, they had a short scrub. But the crew on board is veteran astronauts Anne McClain and Takuya Onishi. This is their second space flight for the both of them. Anne McClain is the commander, and Takuya Onishi from JAXA, the Japanese space agency, a little later is going to become the next commander of the space station. They're also joined by the first timers Nicole Ayers and Kirill Peskov, both flying for the first time. They were able to do a lot of their training that they needed to do, and there was a small swap with the crew vehicles as well. Originally, they were supposed to launch on one of the new crew vehicles that SpaceX is developing that hasn't flown into space yet, but they needed a little bit more time to make sure that everything would fly well with the vehicle and that they wouldn't have any problems, which is perfectly fine. I would rather them take as much time as they possibly need with a crewed vehicle. So they did a little bit of swaps with the schedule that they had planned for the crewed vehicles of Dragon, and were able to switch them over to Endurance. And this was finally able to launch on Friday. And we were able to get some really, really awesome views from this. We've seen a little bit of this before, but I thought that the footage that they had of not just the separation of the booster from the upper stage, but some of the burn back maneuvers were just incredible. And this looked just as good as any of the Starship launches that we've been seeing recently. So well done to everyone at SpaceX who were able to provide us with some of these amazing views. In any case, this crew is going to relieve Crew 9, which currently has Nick Hague and the not stranded astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, who will finally be able to return home next week. They will hopefully be returning as soon as Wednesday and undock from the space station and return to Earth. But yeah, I still can't get over how good some of these views look on that. In any case, the Crew 9 is expected to stay at the space station for several months. They might come back as soon as July. And once they are able to get their feet wet, so to speak, and get acquainted with the space station and take over some of the duties that they're going to be performing there, they are then going to be spending the next couple of months, as I said, possibly coming back as soon as July, unless there's any other schedule delays or updates with the crew. After them, we have a Soyuz launch that is going to be happening sometime in April to bring 3 more astronauts, well, a astronaut and 2 cosmonauts to the International Space Station. At that time, then Don Pettit will be able to return to the space station as well. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I've obviously crew space flights are my favorite type of launches that we get to see, and so I was really happy that we were able to get this launch finally, despite the delay, and see some beautiful views of that launch. So, yeah, any sort of thoughts or questions? Were you guys able to watch this, Ryan? I'm sure that you've been paying close attention to every detail of this flight.
Yeah, it was nice to see it finally get off the ground in a sort of rare-ish kind of scrub for a SpaceX crew launch. It's not, it's something that has happened before, but again, you know, the last few flights, once SpaceX has gotten pretty much to that gate, that T-minus 40 minutes of are we going to go into fueling or not, most of the time, if they have crew on board, they have managed to get through that gate. Obviously, on the first attempt, they weren't because of that hydraulic issue. So they had to scrub, disembark, go back to the crew quarters, chill out for 48 hours, and then try it again on Friday night. But it was a very, very beautiful launch. The sunset, it was, you know, some of the imagery coming out. SpaceX has published some like 360 videos and slow motion videos, and Ben Cooper as well, photographer on the Space Coast. just some absolutely beautiful images, especially from the Starship Tower, because it's like a new massive, you know, they're not launching Starships from 39A yet, right? But they can use it in the meantime as a huge camera mount, essentially looking down on 39A. I just, it's absolutely spectacular. That sunset timing was, you know, orbital mechanics working with photography conditions there.
Yeah, absolutely. Dutta, did you happen to see the crewed launch and especially the separation that had that little floating panel in space?
I did not. Been heads down at work, but it's the SpaceX does a fantastic job with their imagery, and they're always like on the very edge of what's going on. It's their footage is now top notch. And I remember a time when we were all complaining they don't share enough with us,
and now they share so much.
Yeah, it's awesome to see.
I thought it was really interesting, though, how we got this kind of floating panel there. And it turns out, I guess, that it's just insulation. But everyone kind of, myself included, kind of freaked out for half a second. Of just like, what is that? Why is my spaceship falling apart?
Yeah, it's like foil backed or whatever.
That's right, yeah. It was really cool,
crazy.
though, to see the crew. There was something interesting after the docking that I wanted to share as well. One of the cosmonauts, Ivan Wagner, decided to dress up as an alien and freak out the crew from inside the window.
Nice.
It took me a minute too, because I was looking around at the crew, counting them up, and I'm like, wait a minute, everyone's accounted for. And then I was like, oh wait, no. There's one more Russian guy not accounted for. That has to be him. But for a split second there, I was like, wait a minute, all right, is this disclosure? Nope, not quite. Just playing around. But I love these sort of planks.
I love astronaut hugs. They turn into like full body grapples.
Yeah. Oh man, it's great to see, and I'm definitely gonna miss seeing Suni and her crazy hair and a lot of the jokes that they've been able to have. So this is great news, and I'm sure that NASA is very relieved that this mission is finally underway and that they'll be able to get back on schedule with the regular crew rotations.
It's funny, the SpaceX suits, they look like they're dressed up to handle high voltage electricity.
Well, you never know. They might for a little while. I'm not sure what spacewalks are planned for any of them, but I believe there's one last iSolar array or iRosa rollout array that needs to be installed. So who knows? They might get a chance. But yeah, that was a quick summary of the Crew 10 launch. We also got Sphere X finally launched this week. We also had the Transporter 13 mission launch this week. We also got a Rocket Lab launch this week. Dutta, did you catch it? Did you catch the Rocket Lab launch? No. I am so disappointed in you. They had some of the coolest footage that I
bet you're surprised too.
I'm very surprised. Very, very surprised. Here, let me pull this up real quick. We just got to show this quick launch footage here, because this drone footage is absolutely crazy.
What?
Oh man, you're gonna break my streak.
I mean, it's only a couple of seconds, but I was really impressed with that. So
It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
2, 1.
Yeah, we can mute that, but like, yeah, it's crazy good. Yeah, I was like, wow, that's amazing. I'm
That's
super
the
jealous.
most Rocket Lab I've ever seen.
They do a good show. They put on a good show. You should watch them sometime.
I don't doubt that. I'm not. It's nothing against them.
did you hear that, chat? I just forced Dutta to watch a Rocket Lab launch, even for a few seconds. You're welcome.
All right.
Oh man.
Time to move. I feel like it's time to move on, right? That like we're good there.
Yeah,
Am I
I
allowed
think
to come
so.
back?
Yes,
All
you're
right.
allowed to come back.
I think it's time for Ryan to try to stump us with his first poll. As we sit awkwardly waiting for the poll. We'll continue to sit awkwardly waiting for the poll. It will come. There it is. There we go. All right, Ryan, take it away.
Okay, question for everyone, and chat room included. How many Dragon flights have been crewed? Is it 10, 12, 13, or 16? You can answer hashtag 10, hashtag 12, hashtag 13, and hashtag 16.
All right, so chat room, you've got 30 seconds from the time that music started. Make sure you add your hashtag in there and vote in the chat room. So if you're on YouTube, X, Twitch, wherever you're watching, just in the chat room, hashtag your answer. I will say, I think it's none of those. Right? I'll work through my logic. I'll work through my logic when the chat room's done voting here. I don't think the real answer is on the board.
Why don't you go first then?
All right, here's so technically speaking, it was when the music stopped, 16 was the winner. Okay, cool. It's still the winner now in the chat room. But here's my thought process. So DM1 did not fly with crew, right?
Right.
How many Dragon flights have been crewed, right? So DM1 did not fly with crew. DM2 did fly with crew, and we just flew crew 10. So it'd be 10 crew missions plus DM2. So I think the answer is 11. Final vote. All right.
Let's give everyone else a chance to answer, shall we? Mike.
I think that the answer is 16. I'm going with the chat room on this.
Dasari, are you answering?
13.
13, okay.
Jared?
I'm also going to go with the chat room with 16.
Okay, well done, because 16 is indeed the correct answer, because we had Demo 2, 10 crew missions for NASA,
11.
which is 11, and then you have the Inspiration 4, Polaris Dawn, which brings you to 13, and we have had 3 Axiom missions to the space station. So
I forgot
16.
about commercial crew or non-NASA, non-astronauts. I forgot the NASA. I only did astronauts.
I feel like we need to put you at a -1 now. I mean, geez, you were
gotten that
there.
one
You were there.
Can you have minus points?
I forgot. I completely forgot about Polaris and Inspiration and Axiom. Just 'cause, oh man, I'm so fired. As a reminder, my views and opinions on this show are mine and mine alone. And when I get questions about Company X wrong, it's just because I'm an idiot. All right, moving on. I don't want to talk about this anymore. We're moving on.
So, we some crazy news this week. Relativity,
The other
Relativity
Rocket
Space, the other Rocket Lab. They dropped a really long update video this week, sharing their progress and looking at the hardware they've been working on. And one of the big surprises to me is that they have kind of gotten a huge cash infusion from Eric Schmidt, famous for being one of the members of Google. I mean, this guy is another one of the billionaires. I believe he's like number 50, or at least in the top 50 of richest billionaires in the world. And he has taken over from Tim Ellis, who's no longer the CEO of Relativity Space. He's still on the
Really?
board and still a co-founder and still involved, but the CEO position has been taken over by Eric Schmidt. So maybe that's just in return for putting all this cash infusion in, but that's crazy to me. And in my opinion, it feels like we need to take them a lot more seriously now.
Yeah,
It's good that they got a cash infusion. I've heard through the grapevine that they were not a good bet because of running short on cash in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good news.
It's interesting to me how much things have changed over the last, we'll call it decade or so, right? The big joke in aerospace used to be, how do you become a millionaire in aerospace? Start a billionaire? Yeah, exactly, right? So like
Start with 2 billionaires.
exactly. So it's really interesting to me, like people are seeing something here now of like, oh, there's a market here. It's also like Eric Schmidt. That was not on my 2025 bingo card. Like straight up, I did not see this one coming at all.
Yeah, me neither. But it's a very, really encouraging development. And with his money, not only is he going to be able to keep them going for a little while, but they're also looking at other ways to expand their operations. They're looking at renting a facility outside of, I believe it's Houston, somewhere called Baywood, Texas, which is right on the water, so that they would be able to ship their large rocket from a barge to Cape Canaveral, where they intend to launch it from. So, although expensive, it's just like, okay, well, you kind of have, if that moves through, they haven't purchased anything yet or leased anything yet, but if that goes through, they'd have their way to transport this
I, s- I still
bigger
don't know
rocket.
I still don't know how the fuck they're gonna get it from Long Beach to San Pedro. There's so many low bridges between here and there.
Yeah, I think that they are going to have to do it piece by piece and assemble it somewhere else if they do go about
You
it
could
that
print
way.
the bridge.
But I don't envy their transportation people at all.
I mean, you can get a Falcon 9 from Hawthorne to Cape Canaveral, so
This
you know,
this is bigger than a Falcon 9, Jamie,
it's bigger diameter than a Falcon 9.
It is,
Isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Falcon 9 is like 12 feet in American, and Relativity is a little over 17 feet. So,
So
it is
my
bigger.
understanding, I don't think they can
They-
bring it on the roads then, right? Because
They
Falcon
cannot.
9, yeah, Falcon 9 was the largest you could transport. I believe it was the largest you could transport on American roads. That's how its diameter was kind of picked.
Well, they seem to think that they can come up with a solution.
Believe it or
And
not,
they are-
we have a decent rail system though.
Yeah, but your rail system is limited in size too.
Yeah, unless-
Too smaller than Falcon 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Hear me out. Is it reusable? Can you just launch it from your manufacturing site and land it at your?
That's just to transport it before it gets integrated with a payload.
Whatever, it's fine.
Launch it from LBG.
Okay, so one of the things that I don't think we've talked about a whole lot is with regards to relativity. Their big shtick was 3D printing, right? Like
Yeah.
that they were 3D printing the entire vehicle, and they did fly a fully 3D printed vehicle, or mostly fully 3D printed vehicle successfully, right? Yeah. And now they've moved away from that. And I would like to go around the room and get your thoughts on relativity moving away from 3D printing to a more traditional approach to rocket design. Start with you, Space Mike.
I mean, I think it's really interesting, and they obviously had a couple of problems while they were developing that system. I think that they have realized that they couldn't do everything with 3D printing. They're still going to do a lot with 3D printing. They're still going to do some of the engines with 3D printing, but some of the other structures, like the dome structure near the top of the stages, I kept hearing rumors that kept collapsing on them. So it just wasn't going to work with the way that they had design things. And it was good enough for their first rocket, their Terran 1, which they launched, what was that, in 2023, I believe, for its one and I guess only launch that they'll ever do with that, and immediately moving forward towards this. So I think it's interesting that they are still trying to do some stuff and make the most of the tools that they bought, but it's probably a really smart idea to move towards a couple of more traditional ways of doing things just to start flying. If you want to upgrade in the future and figure out how to solve that problem, great, but it sounds like what they were kind of doing is almost breaking the bank, trying to figure out how to move forward with what they had been investing in over the almost at least over the past 5 years, but they've been around for a little while now.
How about you, Ryan?
I have to agree with Mike. I don't really think that categorizing it as like abandoning 3D printing or something like that is accurate, because they're still going to be doing the fiddly bits, right? Say engines, they still want to incorporate 3D printing into that manufacturing process. But when you have these huge rings for your massive, liquid methane, liquid oxygen tanks, 3D printing that at this scale just doesn't really make any sense when you can have like steel or aluminium panels that are a fraction of the width to create those rings. You just weld them together. It's quicker, probably cheaper, and also more mass efficient. which, as we know, is so important for launching rockets, right? So I think it's just, I'm not sure what the correct word is, but it's more of a realization or a realignment of their thought process. Like 3D printing is cool, but not everything requires 3D printing. 3D printing can be useful for the fiddly bits, like in the engines, but when you have these huge tank structures, you know, the traditional way sometimes is the best way because, you know, American aerospace has had 60, 70 years to realize that, you know, maybe making tanks with big sheets of metal is better than trying to, you know, do a little spool that goes up and up and up and up like that and could be weak and could be bent and could be squashed and, you know.
From the chat room, JTTV says ditching 3D printing was only a matter of time or bankruptcy. So, Dutta, are you allowed to talk about this at all, or is this a no-go topic?
I have no relation to them.
Yeah. So, what's your opinion?
Nor am I any longer seeking employment from them. I've thought from the very beginning that 3D printing the entire vehicle was a novel concept that would prove itself to be more cost in prohibitive than the problems that it solved. I think it's fantastic that they did a technology demonstrator, and I think that the lessons they learned from that were probably invaluable. However, trying to make a sheet out of a wire is a strange proposition that I'm glad that they've abandoned. And I think there's more traditional means that are more cost effective that permit them to make rockets at pace and on cost that would you otherwise can't do with 3D printing. Like they had porosity issues, they had leaks, they had structural issues. It was a nice experiment, and I'm sure there's a lot of knowledge that they gained from it that has informed the structures that they make for their engines, for, like Ryan said, all their fiddly bits that you aren't able to do with traditional manufacturing, and I think that'll do them well in the long run. But getting to like making things the way that they are simple and the way that's been done across the industry for 40 years, I think is probably the best call for them.
Jared?
They're quitters. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They're just like anybody else gonna say it. So no. 3D printing is extremely difficult, and as Dutta is talking about, 100%. You are looking at an entirely different kind of manufacturing compared to traditional aerospace. Different methods, different techniques, different results, different problems, things that we've just never contended with before. True, literal, bleeding edge building of a vehicle. And they proved that you could do that. Terran 1 was 85% 3D printed, and it worked through Max Q and went on to stage separation. And then the second stage failed to ignite its engine. So it wasn't a 3D printing issue that ended it. It was a propulsion issue that ended it. So there was viability with it. I think what happened is that Relativity probably looked at the market and said, we think that the small launcher market is going to get oversaturated, and we don't want to be a part of that. We want to go after the bigger payloads or the constellation payloads. So let's focus on our bigger rocket. We'll drop Terran 1 at this point. And once you go to a bigger rocket, it probably made a lot more sense to just get rid of that 3D printing. They still have those incredible 3D printers, some of the largest metal 3D printers in the world at their disposal. So I can't imagine they're going to get rid of all of it, especially with the philosophy of someone like Tim Ellis, behind the company. with his work that he did at Blue Origin, bringing in that metallic 3D printing and changing their attitudes on manufacturing at Blue Origin with that, to the point that he eventually said, this is not innovative enough and I'm going to go start my own company. And then, cold emailing Mark Cuban for $500,000 to get started and getting it. So, I'm interested to see what Terran R. I'm interested to see if Terran R is going to make it to the launch pad, simply because of the speed of things that have happened at Relativity. They definitely have switching from Terran 1 to Terran R. In my perspective, they lost a lot of momentum in doing that, simply because they had been so focused on making 3D printing a part of their landscape, their ecosystem of how they're going to manufacture, to switch over to much more traditional aerospace ways and means. Ended up having to probably change a bit of their culture on the interior as well. But ultimately, I think, I jokingly said quitters, but ultimately, a bigger vehicle is probably going to require you to stick, at least for now, with those traditional aerospace techniques, just because at the scale that Terran R is wanting to be at, it's difficult enough doing it with the traditional techniques. Trying to do it with something completely outside of the box, something that's never been done before, it's going to be a lot of money. And as we know, Relativity is pretty much burning cash left and right for a very long time. So we'll have to see what they do with a new investor.
Well, they don't have a revenue stream until they launch. But I'm gonna push back on you a little bit, Jared. One of the things that I think was smart about them pivoting from Terran 1 to Terran R is they never had to invest in all of the tooling for a traditionally manufactured Terran 1.
Yes, that is a really great point.
There was tooling, there was processes that they had to develop in order to be able to 3D print Terran 1, but those are kind of universal for whatever size of thing they wanted to make. It didn't matter because it was 3D printed. They didn't have a huge investment in, cradles to support and tooling to align panels to do friction stir welding or traditional welding. Like all of that stuff was an investment they never made. They only had to make it in Terran R, which is their path going forward. So I don't think that was a terrible idea.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I feel like it is just it's an interesting pivot in. I would really love to have that book that's written one day about the inside story at Relativity.
Of all of these places, honestly.
Yeah. What went down? What went down in the old C-17 factory in Long Beach? What was going on in those boardroom meetings, and who who flung their Sprite across the room or something? Just find that out. That to me is where it would be really interesting. Is what was that pivotal moment that changed it for them? And at least for now, nobody's talking. So.
Forgive my ignorance. Wasn't Relativity's whole shtick 3D printing because they realized that once you get to the moon or to Mars, you're not going to want to build these HABs. You're going to want to 3D print them, right? Like anything you do in space, you're not going to want to bring just the raw material. Well, you're not going to want to bring the bits and bobs. Is that how I would say it, Ryan? Bits and bobs?
Yes.
Okay. You're not going to want to bring all of that. You're going to want to just bring, just aluminium powder and then print from that, or whatever the case is.
I think a lot of it came from Tim Ellis kind of running the show, because Tim was very big on metallic 3D printing. He's the one that kind of actually brought it in at Blue Origin. And then also Jordan Nguyen, their other co-founder as well at Relativity. His whole attitude was that he was working at SpaceX, and he basically said, I don't think SpaceX is innovating enough, so we're going to go start our own company with Tim. And the idea was that the metallic 3D printing of the whole rocket, that was specifically what was going to be the big innovation drive. And yeah, you can, in a place like the moon, where you have no atmosphere, it should be significantly easier to do that metallic 3D printing there. So in theory, obviously somebody's got to go do it. Nobody's done that yet, but I don't know. Maybe in a future lander, someone will do it.
And doing that in space or in a low atmosphere situation alleviates a lot of the problems that they had of doing it on Earth with porosity and pollution from oxygen and stuff like that, and making the welds weaker.
Yeah, oxygen sucks for materials. It really does. It's highly
Oxygen is-
reactive, and
Oxygen is
it's
terrible for you.
it's a pain in the butt. It's what's killing you. So
But here's the next question, and certainly doing things that are innovative that other people haven't done, that's dangerous and expensive, and there's no guarantee of success, right? Like that's the real risk, but it's also the real reward, right? Look at SpaceX. People weren't doing most of that stuff. It was like with regards to landing and reuse in this way. Sure, there were some tests in the past, basic demonstrators that showed that this is technically possible, but that was kind of the extent of it. The real reward came from them just like hammering away at this and figuring it out and doing something that no one had done before, and then capitalizing on that, right? If everyone else is just copying, how are they ever going to catch up to the thing that the other company innovated on? How are they ever going to get there? And so by Relativity saying, hey, we're just going to figure out how to 3D print all of this, that was kind of their revolutionary technology. Isn't it kind of going backwards a little bit to say, no, we're just going to do it like a regular rocket? Like, okay, cool. So you're going to do it like a regular rocket. So now you're going to have to compete with SpaceX, Blue Origin, Rocket Lab, Firefly, pick. What are you bringing to the table that's new and different that only you can do?
A lot of lessons.
I think you
lot
said it.
a lot of lessons learned on 3D printing.
Someone said earlier,
Jacob Richard says I would buy them without the rockets because of
I would buy them
gold.
without the rocket.
Relativity is a gold mine because of supplemental technologies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to remember that those metallic 3D printers that they still have are the largest in the world. Like that was a monumental effort in order to figure out how to make metallic 3D printers that were big enough in order to print out propellant tanks for a rocket, right? Like that is like unbelievable. JTTV just said it in the chat room right there, which is that they are the world experts in metal 3D printing. That's such a niche field. Having that experience is extremely valuable.
But they're moving away from that. Are they not?
Just because they're not using it doesn't mean they don't have it. They still have the equipment. They still have the tooling. They still have the knowledge. And you can use that for other things. There's a number of companies, including Zinger, that are doing 3D printing for other manufacturers. So Zinger car manufacturing 3D prints parts for McLaren Cars Limited because McLaren doesn't want to outlay the tooling, and they're making 3D printing parts for road cars and race cars. Like there's a market there for you to be able to use your equipment and your knowledge for other industries. I wouldn't slight that.
Okay, but I agree. And someone exchangeable does say, and I will agree with this statement. The problem is 3D propellant tanks are pretty dumb. And I think we all kind of go,
yeah.
I think from the beginning we were like, just bend the metal and weld it. Right? Like, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the 3D printing of large objects, they can 3D print metal parts for others, right? So I guess my question is, why a rocket? Right? The industry, we've got so many different small and medium lifters coming on the market, even heavy and super heavy lifters coming on the market. Why do we need another one? What are they bringing to the marketplace, especially since they're moving away from 3D printing on those rockets? I would argue their secret sauce is large 3D printing. So Why are they not working on large 3D printing of regolith on the moon? Why are they? And maybe that's because it's not monetizable right now, which I think it's fair. But with someone like Eric Schmidt, like, okay, let's go for a long-term game here, right? Like, let's figure out what we can do with in situ resource utilization. Someone else said that earlier. Maybe it was Ika. I don't remember. But like, Raul, yep, right. So using the resources that you have in space to, build whatever you need. Who else is working on that? Right? When we get to that point, when
I think part of the
Starship,
I think part of the trouble for that is you need to be in situ to test using in situ resources.
sure,
Let's at least get
touche.
there first, right?
Yeah.
So
but
how
you
so
don't
how do
think
you
they're gonna-
how do you get there? How do you get there?
Do you think they're going to beat SpaceX or Blue or like all of these other companies?
If you go by
Or even
the
SLS.
percentage of if you go by the percentage of their payloads, SpaceX is basically a rocket that was created to hoist a satellite network company.
I don't understand.
I think it evolved into that. I don't think it was created for that reason to begin
But
with.
but
you're not
but
wrong.
the biggest benefit to SpaceX right now is all of their Starlink, right?
Sure.
That's one of their main revenue streams, and their biggest customer is Starlink. So they've basically created a rocket system to be able to launch their own satellites.
If
So
you
is it so crazy for Relativity to be able for Relativity to be designing a rocket system to launch their own experiments for in situ resource utilization?
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But
I
now
was
it's
going to
too-
say, to Dutta's point about SpaceX being sort of like their own customer, Starlink's not a new idea. Starlink was sort of fundamental to SpaceX in its early days. If you look at the people who are at SpaceX in those early opening years, and you look at the investments that SpaceX also made in those early years, you see people that were working at used to be working at Surrey Satellite Technology and other communication groups like that. So, sort of, finding yourself becoming your biggest customer because of a communication system you may have been thinking about for the better part of 15 years. I don't know.
I don't know. I guess my point is everyone has limited funds. Everyone, right?
Yes.
So you got to be smart about how you spend your money. Obviously, I don't know their books. I don't know their long-term plans. I'm just asking questions. And my question is, what are they bringing to the table here? So if they're bringing in some sort of new and innovative technology with regards to rockets, awesome. If they're not, if they're just building a rocket for the sake of building a rocket because that's what everyone else is doing, I don't see success here. But there is something to their 3D printing, right? Like no one else is doing that. And so that's going to become either it's going to go nowhere or it's going to become a huge desired thing and they have a huge leg up on everyone. I don't see them taking advantage of that huge leg up on everyone. Maybe there's a game plan that I'm just not seeing, right? Because like obviously we're not privy to all of the things, but that's my question. Why? Okay, cool. We're moving away from 3D printed, and I get it. Like 3D printed fuel tanks, how much sense do those make here on Earth? But I don't know. What if you think bigger?
I feel like in the near term, they're trying to, what can we accomplish now with what we have? And by moving towards some of these traditional things, it leaves the door open that we can upgrade this stuff in the future, but we need to get launching now because we have over $1 billion worth of contracts, customers waiting to launch. And those customers signed up with them because the largest aerospace company in the world, SpaceX, is booked. I mean, they're doing an incredible job in launching more than anybody else, but it's kind of gotten to this point where it's just like, okay, now all this demand has been created for other launches, competitors to Starlink, and all the different science missions. Synthetic aperture radar is really popular now, all sorts of Earth observation missions. There is this huge demand for launch now. So it's just like, okay, let's start delivering. It feels like the like 2012 to 2014 for SpaceX, where it's just like, okay, we've got all these NASA contracts, and that's not what Relativity has. It's more commercial and some military stuff, possibly, if they can prove it out. But that same sort of situation of, okay, we've got the contracts, but we don't get paid until we deliver. So in the short term, let's deliver with what we have right now, and then we can upgrade that stuff in the future and bring in a lot more of that innovative stuff that you were mentioning, Jamie.
You don't get paid until you deliver it to orbit.
Right.
And there's only so much that investors are going to be willing to shell over. You know, maybe if this was 3 or 4 years ago when SPACs were all the rage, you could get the money, but boy, we've seen what happened with that, and it's basically what the history of aerospace is, which is that it is not beacons of success coming out. It is the bodies of those who have not made it that you are crawling up to the top of to try and see the light. So aerospace is brutal. Dutta has had a really good way of words with talking to me about stuff before, and one of my favorite things that Dutta said is that you're only good until you're not, and it only takes one. So, yeah.
Relativity knows this as much as I do. Second stages are hard, and they haven't put anything in orbit yet.
And you know, maybe it's all just ego. Maybe Eric Schmidt just wants to be part of the club with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. So, you know, he might be willing to dump as much as he can into it. However this came about, somebody convinced him, or he came up with the idea of it himself. Just, okay, you guys are far along. I'll take over this rocket company so I compete with those can compete with those guys. Who knows?
Yeah. And Eric Schmidt's also done a lot of work. It's Arvale has pointed out in the chat room just now. Eric Schmidt, has done a lot of work with the Department of Defense. That's a pretty good customer if you need someone to get your company started. So it's a bit of money, and those guys really like throwing the money around.
A huge part of big money businesses is politics.
Mm-hmm.
So where do they go from here? Right. So
space.
Thanks, Dada.
Nice.
Well, that answered that question. But
There we
legitimately, where do they go from here? Right. Like, they're going to build their rocket. Like, what do we think their future looks like? Is 3D printing going to come back in some way with in situ resource utilization? Are they just going to kind of sideline it for a while? Do you think they're going to keep that alive somehow? Or do you think they're just going to are they just yet another rocket launch company? Where do they go from here?
Well, in their long video that they just dropped, they did talk about doing a little bit of 3D printing for other customers. But as far as their rocket is concerned, they are going to be printing a lot of the parts, a lot of the fiddly bits, as Ryan calls it, for the engine itself. But some of the larger structures, too. I mean, the main area that for the turbo pump is going to be 3D printed. And I'm sure some other stuff that they're planning on doing as well that we're not privy to. And they're outsourcing the rest for stuff that they haven't figured out, like the COPV tanks they are buying from another company. Those domes that go at the top of the fuel tanks, they're outsourcing from another company. Even the payload fairings, they are outsourcing from another company. And I think all of that is just, what can we do to get started as soon as possible?
I think that's smart.
Yeah.
I think that's smart. Like I mentioned to somebody mentioned the COPVs. COPVs you make yourself if you've already got the spare bandwidth in a machine that you use to wind your tanks.
Oh, man.
COPVs are hard. For those who don't know, a COPV is a carbon
overwrapped pressure vessel.
Yep. And it's basically it's a tank, and then you spin carbon fiber threads around it back and forth, weaving back and forth to strengthen the tank, right? And these are actually super hard to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think what they're doing is the right call for now. But
for now, exactly.
And here's the thing where their history will come back to help them in the future. Whatever composite.
That was me. I said carbon. Yeah.
Whatever they are doing now, they are going to learn from, and they're going to learn all of the things that they did wrong. And they can now use their 3D printing experience to incrementally improve their design without much expense in new tooling and things of that nature. So all of the collector at the bottom of the tank to be able to feed their multiple engines, like that's a complicated thing to have more than one suction port for their engines. Like that's a very, very difficult thing to do. You get all kinds of liquid swirling, and they've got to mitigate that. And just look at SpaceX's internal tank videos. They can then lean on their 3D printing experience to test and iterate and get to a good place, and then go into more cost-effective traditional manufacturing to make those in quantity. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Ika, 3D print your tooling. Good
3D
idea.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, that's kind of clever. Yeah.
That actually is. That's brilliant.
And I think that'll be their strength going forward, is to be able to iterate, utilizing all the things. Like somebody mentioned, they came up with a program. They developed a program to predict negative and negate warping from thermal expansion and contraction, and that's huge. I once had a welder, a vendor of mine. They made a steel structure, and the steel structure had to be welded to with a skin that was 100% welded. And the first one that they made turned into a taco. And they figured out how to pre-bend it all so that when they did that full sheeting welding, it turned out flat. And I happened to go visit this vendor once, and they had just gotten done welding the sheet, and the part had cooled, and they were measuring with a string to make sure it was square. So they took a string from opposite corners and measured what that length was. And while they had that string stretched, you could not put a piece of paper underneath that string without molesting it. over 25 feet, and like come on,
That's insane.
that is good. And when people
That's
can
crazy.
figure that out, like you keep that vendor.
Okay, calm down, Dada. You're getting excited over there.
I know.
Down, boy, down.
No.
All right. Any final thoughts on Relativity?
Yeah, I got one, which is
Go on, Jared.
don't underestimate the fact that they have 190 seconds of flight data. So
They do have a little bit of experience.
there you go. That's my
Ryan.
final thought on them.
Ryan, were you going to say something?
I'm excited to see where they go, because they have in that video they released, they have a clear roadmap of what they want to do, not only with the company but with Terran R. They want to bring that booster back. Reusable rockets is very obviously now what people need to be doing, and reusable rockets at this scale right now, we have SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Relativity developing at this scale. So it's exciting to see.
Absolutely.
All right.
With that, I guess we are ready for another poll. Ryan, you have another one to stump us with. Is that correct?
More maths. Let's
More
go.
maths.
I don't want to do
How
more
ma-
math.
I already
How
brains
ma-
today.
How many cumulative days in space does Crew 10 have? So this is all 4 crew members. Add up their days in space. What is that number? Is it 189, 149, 321, or 234? Of course, put a hashtag in front, put it in chat. You've done it before already. There you go.
I have no idea.
9, 149, 321, or 234.
I'm just gonna have to guess. I'm gonna pick whatever the chat room picks. Chat room, you and I. We got this. We got this, chat room. Let's do it. Let's victory. I choose hashtag 321.
Okay, Mike.
I'm actually going to go with that as well.
Dada?
3, 2, 1.
Jared?
Steady as she goes. 3, 2, 1.
Well done. Everyone is correct across the board. That's 321 days. So yeah, we as we mentioned at the top of the show, we have 2 rookies and 2 experienced astronauts on board. So this is, you have a massive number plus a massive number plus 2. So there you go.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Is that including today?
That was from
today
this
and
morning.
yesterday.
That was from this morning.
Nice.
And what is the time zone cutoff? Is that coordinated universal time?
It was close enough to round up to a day. So there you go.
Chat got 2 today, right?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah?
Yes.
I think
Proud
this
of
is
you
pretty-
guys.
Chat has been doing a good day.
Absolute
Sack-
W, chat. Good job.
We're all stalling. Sack, have you had a chance to update the leaderboard? You can give us a thumbs up.
Oh,
or a thumbs down.
I'm doing it now.
Oh, okay, cool. I just love that Ryan is judging us from the side. Ooh, Jared is so we've got Jared in the lead with 9. Then Chat and Space Mike are tied with 6. Again, this is from when we started doing this, so from the beginning of 2025, I believe. Dada has 3, although in all fairness, Dada's missed a few shows, and I still have a giant goose egg. I'll get there. I believe in me.
Well, good job, everybody.
-4. Launchpad said Jamie has -4.
Yeah.
I'll get there. I believe in myself. All right, moving on. Jared, I think this is you. It is you've got an astrology lesson about big giant microscopes.
Not big giant microscopes, but definitely something that happened this week that was very cool to see, which is this. Oh my gosh, what is that? Is that an eclipse? It sure looks like one, but is that what is being eclipsed there? Can anybody tell what's being eclipsed there?
Well, since it says on the bottom lunar eclipse, I'm going to say it's a lunar eclipse. It literally says it in the text.
Yeah, except yeah. Well, I mean, technically, if you look around the lander there, yes, that is a lunar eclipse. But we're seeing the Earth get eclipsed by the moon, or the moon, the sun. Oh my gosh!
So we're seeing a Terra eclipse.
Look at what you've
we're
done.
seeing an Earth eclipse.
I don't know
So
what to
okay,
call
so
this. Should we call it a Terra eclipse?
oh, I
like
like that. A
that.
Terra eclipse. So that is the Earth that is getting eclipsed
Yes.
by the moon.
That's the sun getting
by
eclipsed
the-
by the Earth.
That's the sun. Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, it's a Terran. Yeah, that makes way more sense. Because what other orbital body?
Look at this. This is like a mirror image right here. The one on the right
Uh-huh.
is the sun being eclipsed by the Earth, and then on the left is, of course, the moon getting eclipsed by the Earth blocking out the sun. So we're seeing the same image in a way from 2 different perspectives, looking at each other.
So what
Yes,
took
and
the image?
I'm loving this beautiful diamond ring shot, by the way, that was there. That was like unbelievably gorgeous, and
Yeah.
is one of my favorite parts of the 2 actual total solar eclipses I've gotten to see. Diamond ring is definitely an absolute treat, and you get 2 of them at every eclipse. Oh, look at that shot! Now
I
that's
I
yeah,
couldn't
that's some
help
good
but
stuff.
include the rockets getting
yeah.
themselves underneath the blood moon as well. That was SpaceX.
Yeah.
And Firefly Aerospace also had their Alpha rocket on the pad, although that one got scrubbed. We'll see when that launches again. But they captured also image of
Yeah.
their rocket underneath the blood moon, which is crazy because it's their lander on the moon providing us with this crazy footage.
Yeah, and Blue Ghost, I believe it was, I think it was just sort of like a happy coincidence of scheduling, from what I understand, to get it to the moon in time for it to actually take those images. So amazing stuff. I don't think we've ever actually imaged a lunar eclipse from the surface of the moon. Or I guess
I think
now
there
we can
was
say,
one back in the 60s or 70s. Was it a Surveyor lander maybe? But I believe there was one image, but super grainy, super horrible film, from that era. But this is definitely the first time in color and in high definition.
yeah, and
So crazy.
it's absolutely fantastic. I really do hope that we get to do a lot more astronomy from the surface of the moon and doing things like this can actually help with stuff like atmospheric sciences and other ways for us to study the Earth. The moon ends up being a really good platform to study the Earth because as long as you're on the near side of the moon, you just aim whatever instrument you want at the Earth and you don't have to move it. So that's nice, right?
It looks like a
So it's
sci-fi
pretty good.
movie. It doesn't
really
even look
does.
real. It looks like something rendered out of a sci-fi or a horror film, one of the two.
Gives me
Yeah,
Stargate
it's-
vibes for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if did anybody on the crew here or in our chat room actually go out and take a look at the lunar eclipse happening
did.
that
I don't
night?
really-
'Cause I did. I went out.
I don't do
Lunar
astrology
eclipses-
too much.
Well, Jamie, I must say,
It was in
I also
prograde.
don't-
It was good luck.
I was gonna say I too don't do astrology too much either. Isn't that funny? Funny about how we both got that right. So, nice thing about lunar eclipses, as we always like to say, is that basically half of the Earth, just a little over half of the Earth, actually gets to watch a lunar eclipse progress, and then all you have to do is have good weather and then just be able to look up and see the moon. That's about it. So. Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it happens over a very long period of time, and it's not like a lunar or solar eclipse where you got a very brief amount of time for you to actually catch it. These things happen over 4 to 5 hours, so like you could honestly just go out in the middle of totality and take it in for a couple minutes and enjoy it, and then go back to sleep if you want to. And I will admit that's basically what I did. I got up right about midnight our time, went out, looked at it for about 5-10 minutes, and then went back in and was like, dang, that's a good one.
Not gonna lie, I just happened to be up and was like, "Oh, that's happening now. I'm gonna go out before I go to bed."
Yeah, it really is that easy. Just like set an alarm or something and then step out and you got it.
I live in a
visible.
I live in a visual bucket, so anything that happens at night that's like below 45 degrees, I can't see it.
This was at zenith, Dada. This was like right overhead. So it's okay though. We'll get you for the next one.
All right, hang on. Second
Then I missed
excuse,
it.
ready, go. Try take two.
So somebody was asking where they were able to see it. If you're in Western Africa, Western Europe, all of North America, South America, or Eastern Asia, or Eastern Oceania, or the Pacific, that's where you're at. So basically, a good swath of the world was able to actually witness it. So
Totality
Again,
was
these
like
are-
6 o'clock in the morning here, so I was already, wag asleep. But in September, there's another one which is going to be at 7 o'clock in the evening, which is going to be much more, nice, acceptable.
yeah, I don't
appropriate.
think we get that one. I don't think we get that one
that's,
here.
It's just
So,
just for the Giga European eclipse,
yeah. Well, it's,
America
y'all need one. It's been a little bit of time, I think. So that's fine. Get that eclipse.
All right. On that note, yeah,
Don't worry, you'll still have clouds.
I think we're winding down, but we did forget to mention earlier in the show we had some gifted memberships. Let me see here. Sakura's Light gifted 5 TMRO memberships. Look at that. See, I remembered to flag it so I could get back to it quickly and easily. I'm all proud of myself. So thank you very much. And those memberships help us continue to do the show week after week, month after month. And anyone who just became a new member to the shows of tomorrow, you're going to be able to join us on the member show that'll be coming up here in just a few minutes. But if you weren't gifted a membership, you can actually just go to spacex.com. Well, and then while I'm doing this, Dave also gifted 5 memberships. We have 10 brand new members. Thank you, Dave. Week after week, Dave taking care of people. I really appreciate it. So for our 10 brand new members, or if you are a member, which you can go to youtube.com/TMRO/join and become a member. And I'm going to have to look it up because there are new members. There we go. Thank you. It's Raziel, I think. Raziel. Emil Erickson, Jack Barnett, Alan Kev O, B, just B. That's the whole username. It's just B or Bravo. Rachel Brinkley himself, Bob Smith, and Gabriel Golding. Thank you very much for either becoming members or renewing your membership. And then, of course, we've got our suborbital, our orbital, and our escape velocity members who, again, you don't have to follow me. Like, if I say them quickly, it's okay. Wait. Hang on. What else can I make them do? Ground support. Wait.
BB Mux is slow. It takes a minute.
Wait. Did you know that if you go to slide number 5, you can also go to the for the member show? Look at that, without a date on it, because I was too lazy to make one every week, and that's coming up here shortly, just after this particular show.
That is the right call.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
I do update the member slates every week, but like I don't want to have to do like yet another graphic every single time. So thank you to all of our members to help making these show goes. We really do appreciate it. We've been doing this since 2008. Is that right? Something like that. And so it's been a really long time. We're trying to embiggenate the shows. We have our good years and our bad years. We're working on making this a good year. And Space Mike has been putting in a ton of work in doing, cutting up the live shows into smaller bits. He's been doing that with SAC, and then also building out those unique space pods each week so that we've got a lot of really great on-demand content that you can go watch anytime you want, but then also kind of the live show on the weekend where you can come, hang out, have fun with us. We can nerd around and geek out over space. So that's our show this week. For all of our members, stay tuned. The member show is up next. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.